The good old clap, take one.
That's right.
How many of you knew what you wanted to be when you were 7 years old? I did. I wanted to be world champion.
Hey, is there honesty involved in this podcast? Can we be honest?
You can shut your fucking lips.
And then I'll just say, put them up, what? Let's go.
He's like, you look too pretty on the wave. Get ugly.
We can talk about DMT if you want.
I thought we were boxing.
We have 2022 WSL Championship Tour rookie Luana Silva on today's episode of The Lineup. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to do it.
So it's crazy times. How are you doing today? Where are we right now? Who have you been hanging out with?
I'm doing pretty good today. We are in my living room and yeah, it's been fun.
Have you surfed today? And if not, depending on how long this goes, are you going to try to surf again?
I surfed this morning at Pipe or Backdoor, and I probably won't surf again because the daylight probably ends around 6.
So we are recording this a couple of days before the start of the 2022 WSL Championship Tour season with the Billabong Pro Pipeline starting on January 29th. But by the time this comes out, it's possible that you've already had your first heat as a full-fledged Championship Tour surfer. So since we're probably speaking to future listeners right now, what is going to happen in terms of your preparation between now and the event? You know, what's your daily routine like? How much do you surf? Is it only at Pipe? How much do you train? Walk us through the next couple days are going to be like for you before the event starts.
Just to keep surfing out at Pipe. I feel like the more I surf out there, the more comfortable you get. And I guess like same as the more you ride waves out there, the more comfortable you get. So I've just been going there every morning, trying to get as comfortable as I can for the start of the season. Yeah.
And how long have you lived on the North Shore for?
I was born and raised on the North Shore, so 17 years, my whole life.
When was the first time you went out and surfed Pipe?
Probably when I was like 11, but it was probably like 1 or 2 feet,
right.
Like sandbar days, you know? Like my mom and dad used to take me like before school, like, oh, just go and try and get a couple waves, like, but it was probably like 1-2 feet, super small.
Right.
Yeah.
And since the tour has been redesigned and now we're starting both the men's and women's championship tour seasons at Pipeline, I know you're a rookie, you're fresh qualified, but has that changed, you know, how often you surf Pipe? Have you intentionally been trying to surf out there a lot more before this opening event, or is it about the same?
No, actually, like I kind of like rarely go out there. I will go out there on occasions, like if it's like a fun, good size, but never if it's like big with consequence. So I think intentionally I've been going out there more and more just because of the start of the season and because our first event is over there. Mm-hmm. Probably surf Pipe more this like the past month than I ever have. Yeah. So it's been a fun experience just getting to learn the wave more.
Yeah. And when you go out there when it's serious and are you working with anyone in particular? Are you talking to anybody in the lineup? How are you kind of figuring it out when you're out there training and getting ready for the event?
I've been working with Reynolds Hayes just from last year on the Challenger Series, and going into this year as well, he'll be going on tour with us. And he'll just be giving me like tips on where to sit and like where to position myself, what waves to catch. And then if I'm out there, if I see like any of the uncles that I usually see like anywhere else, like any other spot, I'll probably ask them like, hey, I think I can get a wave from you.
Now,
stuff like that.
In terms of the work you have been putting in at Pipe recently, has it been paying off in terms of, have you gotten some good waves? Have you gotten some good barrels? Or you're like, hey, yeah, it's actually working out. I'm getting some good waves out here right now.
No, I've actually no, I haven't really gotten like a great wave yet. I'm like kind of hoping I could get one in my heat. But I think I'm just getting more and more comfortable every session and like on what waves I should go on, what waves I shouldn't, where to sit myself, like put myself to get a good wave.
Right.
So I think that's kind of paying off, and like in a heat, I hope like I'd be ready for that.
It is one of those things that I think doesn't really get talked about enough, because I do think it's one of those spots where like the disconnect between seeing a person like perfectly positioned in the barrel at Pipeline and the reality of like watching it in the flesh or even paddling out there and being like, this is pound for pound maybe the most radical pack on the planet at one of the most radical waves, and getting to that position that you see in the photo, so much work goes into it.
It's definitely not how it looks like from land than in the water. When you're in the water, it's like so much more different than what you see from land. Like just all the best guys in the world out there scratching for just a perfect wave. Like you could be waiting like 3 hours, 4 or 5 hours just for like that one good ride that'll like satisfy your like whole day.
That's another thing that I think I'm glad you brought that up, because you can talk to John or you can talk to like a number of people who you assume must get all the waves they want out there. And they often say like, I was out there for 3 hours and got 2 waves. And they say that was a good day, you know, and you're like, that's radical. Like that's unbelievable. And so I don't think anyone can overstate how challenging it is, even just to train out there. But as you pointed out, like that must be kind of appealing when you're going, well, we're gonna have an event out there and I'm surfing against 1 or 2 other women. It's gonna be an opportunity for me to get the waves I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'll be so much fun surfing against like 2, 3 other women out there. Because we can select any wave we want. I think this is probably the hardest event to practice for because of how challenging that crowd is with how many good people are out there. So, yeah.
And this is a personal question because I was always curious about this. Since you're someone who's training to surf in the event at Pipe, there's obviously so many other world-class waves on the North Shore that have a ton of power themselves. A lot of them, you know, barrel as well. Is it ever worth going, all right, I'm not going to battle the pack out there. I'm going to like get my boards dialed at another spot to just feel better before the event starts? Or is Pipe so unique that it's like, it's actually better to go out and get less waves and just get comfortable with that lineup?
I think the best thing to train for Pipe is to surf at Pipe. Like, I don't think there is no other wave like on the North Shore that's like that wave. I mean, you'll have like a couple days maybe at like Rockies, they'll have a couple barrels or like anywhere else, but it's not like how consequential like Pipe is.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your opening round heat is against Joanne Defay and Isabella Nichols. Does it matter to you who you surf against? Does it change your approach at all? Or are you're going out there with the same game plan, agnostic of kind of who you're surfing against?
I don't think it should matter who you're going up against. I've always been told it's you against the ocean. And just focus on yourself. I've always been told like, don't ever focus on the other girls, which is kind of hard. Like if you hear, oh, they got a 9-point ride at Pipe, like you're like, it's hard not to focus on them, but I try not to focus on who is in my heat, even though if it's like heavy hitters.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're in a heat and one of your competitors catches a wave, do you watch it from the back or do you intentionally not look? Because I've heard it both ways, and I've definitely seen like world-class surfers like put their head down while someone's just belting it out the back, and they're like, I don't want to know what's happening out there.
I want to say that I don't do that, but I have had moments where I do that quite often. So I would say that I do that a lot, which I shouldn't.
I feel like if I ever competed at any level close to this, all the photos of me would just be in the lineup of someone else ripping and like my dumb head like looking over my shoulder with like my mouth open, like, oh my God, what's happening?
It's hard not to watch what they're doing on the wave. Like you kind of want to know how well they did on that wave,
right,
like for the score that they got, I guess. So like when you see their wave and like you hear the score that they got, you kind of like want to match,
of course,
what they did or something. But I don't want to focus on that either.
It's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any part of that is maybe like exaggerated at the championship tour level because these are the world's best surfers, and it's like, well, I kind of want to see what like Carissa does, or something like that. And you being, we're gonna get to this in a little bit, but like you being really part of this exciting next wave of women on tour, and you're so young. Have you thought a lot about just the psychological component of you're probably competing against people who you probably have posters of them on your wall?
I know I still in kind of like disbelief that I'm on tour and I surf in a CT in like 3 days.
At Pipe.
At Pipe. And I've had posters of Carissa on my wall. I've had posters of Steph, Lakey, like all those girls. I've watched like all their like movies, surf edits, everything. They've like always inspired me to be who I wanted to be. So yeah, I hope it's not as intimidating as it sounds competing against them. I'm just excited to just compete against the world's best surfers.
Well, and you're one of them, right?
That's so weird to hear, yeah.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because first off, a huge congratulations on qualifying. Like, that is amazing. And you're only 17.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable. When you set out to do the Challenger Series last year, was it a realistic goal for you personally to qualify? Or were you just looking to kind of get experience and maybe try to finish top X or whatever?
So before the Challenger Series started, my dad was putting into my mind, like, hey, like, you should qualify like this year. Like, you're at that age where like you can do it, and like you have so much talent and support from everyone that you're able to do what you want to do. It's like your dream. And I just had it in the back of my head. I never really thought I could get here so fast. And then after the first Challenger Series event, I was like, maybe I won't. Like, it was a pretty bad result for me at the US Open, first round loss. And then after Portugal, I was like, whoa, you can do this. Like, you just won a 10,000. That's insane. And I'm still shocked over that too. Like, that's pretty crazy to me.
I mean, they're battle-hardened like CT surfers that really can't make that jump, right? Because as you pointed out, first round knockout at the US Open, I think you finished 49th, fly around the world to Europe, and then win the Mayo Vizsla Pro Ericeira. Like, was there anything specific that clicked in that window between losing at the US Open and winning in Portugal that you noticed? Or was it just I didn't surf well and then I did kind of thing?
I think I was more focused at in Portugal, and like I wasn't so distracted. But it was kind of like it was new territory for me as well. Like I'd never been to Portugal. Like, I got to know the place really well. It was just a fun way to experience Portugal, I guess. Like, fun way to learn. I love like learning about new waves and like how the reefs work, how it breaks, and like I've been to Huntington so many times. I'm like kind of got sick and tired over that wave.
Especially if it's not clicking for you. It's on the day you're like, oh my God, this wave. But I mean, you defeated fellow Hawaiian and fellow 2022 CT rookie Gabriella Bryan, at Ericeira, and just had a monster event, and had an amazing finish. I think you got 18:03 out of 20 in that heat. So something was clicking for you at that wave.
I think I was just like so fired up. Like, I think after my round of 16 heat, like against the Portuguese there, she was like one of the favorites in that contest for sure.
Right.
So I think after that heat got me so fired up and was like, you can like really do this. Like, you're just as talented as everyone else in this event. So like, why aren't you like you can like win this event.
Right.
So it's just, I think it was just a mental thing that just clicked in my mind and was like, and I was just having so much fun surfing at that spot. It kind of reminded me of like waves over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was really fun.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So then first round knockout at US Open, you win in Portugal, go to France, probably not the result you wanted. And I think you and I met for the first time at Haleiwa,
Yeah.
where Reynos introduced us,
Yeah.
and Liam was there, and
Yeah.
I think I said, "Oh, congratulations," you know, and he's like, "She's not done yet." And I'm like, "I have a good feeling," so I'm glad we're having this conversation because I can tell Reynos that I was right. But you know, what was the pressure like for you at Haleiwa, right? Because there was a lot going on in terms of the qualification shuffle. You know, how did you feel about that event, and then talk us a little bit through how the final went down, because I think one of your very close lifelong friends, Betty Lou Sakura Johnson, won the event, qualified, and that helped you qualify as well.
Yeah. So I was actually feeling really confident at Haleiwa. Not many of the other QS surfers know how to surf Haleiwa, so I thought like some of the Hawaii girls definitely had an advantage over that, and we come from here, we know how to surf big, powerful waves. So I was feeling really good about that event. Unfortunately, I got like knocked out like second heat due to like such a stacked heat as well.
Right.
Like all the girls that were in that heat, Carissa, Brisa, Gabby, like they all surf insane. So, but it was a good experience. So, and then just watching Betty Lou just thrive at her home break was super fun to watch, and qualifying the same year was like a whole nother level of like awesome. Yeah.
Are you and Betty Lou the same age? About the same age? She's 16?
I'm just a year older.
It's okay. So 16 and 17 years old. How do 16 and 17-year-olds celebrate qualifying for the championship tour? Did you guys do anything fun?
I think we kind of did our separate thing. Because we live on opposite sides. She lives in Haleiwa, I live in Sunset. So I kind of had like a little bit of my family just celebrated here at my house, and then I think she just celebrated with her family down there. But yeah.
Very nice and wholesome.
Yeah.
It was a big departure from how things were, 20 years ago or whatever. But I mean, it's interesting because that event finished in sort of early December. Traditionally, we wouldn't start the CT until March, April, in some occasions in Australia. Really quick turnaround, right? You have the holidays, you get the New Year, and it's like, okay, the season's about to start. So there wasn't a ton of time for celebration anyway. Did anything change in your just sort of mental approach between trying to make the tour and then realizing, okay, I'm here now, I have to work on these things before Pipe and Sunset? Or was it just sort of more the same approach that you were taking last year as well?
I'm kind of just taking the same approach as I did last year, just trying to stay focused for each event, and just I don't want to expect too much out of myself this year. I just want to go out and have fun. I'm still so young for this, I would say. I feel like if I expect so much out of myself for an event, I tend to do worse.
Right.
That might go for many of the other athletes. If I just have fun and don't expect anything, that's how Portugal was. Like, I didn't really expect so much out of myself, and I came out on top.
It's something that comes up in a lot of these conversations with elite level surfers like yourself. And we talk about how, in terms of having total confidence and even like a little bit of arrogance and swagger, doesn't happen that often in surfing. And I think at the end of the day, most people kind of point out, well, the ocean's in charge. Like you have the best boards, you can be the fittest person on tour, you can be the most talented. And at the end of the day, it's anyone's heat, especially at the CT level, because, are you going to get the waves? Are you going to surf them correctly? There's so many variables. But I think coming from Hawaii and certainly growing up here gives you a huge advantage, especially in these opening events. And then we're heading back to Portugal where you've got a lot of success already.
I'm just really excited just to start off the year at home one is at my home break at Sunset Beach. And I'm just really looking forward to Pipe as well, surfing with like one other girl out at a perfect wave. And Sunset too. I'm just excited to have fun this year.
We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. So when I came into your beautiful home here, I met your lovely mom and your dad and your beautiful puppy. Tell us a little bit about this. You said you were born and raised on the North Shore. Is your family originally from here? Where do they come from?
My parents are both from Brazil, but a little opposite sides. My dad is from São Paulo, and my mom is a little bit more north, up in Brazil, Recife.
Mm-hmm.
But they met actually in Bali, and then they just decided they wanted to have like a fun lifestyle to grow a family, and they decided to come over here and start a nice family.
Wow, and you're the product of that.
Me and my brother.
Brother, older brother, younger brother?
I have a younger 9-year-old brother.
9-year-old brother.
Yeah.
Does he surf?
He does. He does everything. He golfs, he surfs, he does jujitsu, he loves soccer. He's kind of like, he's at that age where he's into everything.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you? Did you have a bunch of interests when you were younger? Were you doing everything as well?
I tried jujitsu, never really liked that. I was never really into self-defense. I hate hurting people.
The martial arts?
Yeah. I mean, I like kickboxing. I do kickboxing now.
Oh, cool.
Which I really like that, but I never really liked jujitsu. I was a ballet dancer when I was like 5 to 7.
Okay.
My mom like loved ballet, so she put me in ballet. I did hula. I played some tennis. Did soccer. I loved soccer, but surfing kind of stuck out for me.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of those other activities too, you end up getting to take things from those and apply them to whatever you end up doing. Like, I would imagine that what you learned in ballet about body control actually has a lot of use in surfing, you know, in a lot of ways.
Well, that was like so long ago. I'm not sure if I
Right.
still like remember.
Ingrained, maybe. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. That was only when I was like 5 or 7, so I don't know if that's engraved or not. But
How old were you when you started surfing?
3 is when I got pushed into my first wave, and then I started competing when I was 7. I did my first contest when I was 7.
Was that your decision, or were you like, I want to compete, I want to get a trophy?
No, because the I think it was my parents' decision. They were like, "Why don't you just try this out? Like, all the kids do it. Like,
Right.
you surf. Like, just try it out, have fun. Everyone gets a trophy. It's like the participation trophies.
Sure.
It's called the Kokua division. So we would have the Menehune surf contest at Haleiwa, and like everyone participated. Everyone got a trophy, which was really cool. Fun experience.
That's good.
Yeah.
Growing up here, did you go to Sunset Beach Elementary? Or?
I did.
Wow.
I did.
There's a lot of superstars who passed through those halls.
Yes, a lot of them.
How do you balance a burgeoning surf career at a elementary school that's across the street from Pipe? Like, is it hard? You mentioned going to surf before school, but are you ever like, I don't really want to, I'm going to go surf all day?
I probably had, my mom was really strict on school. Like, education comes first in this family.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to go to school, but I'd play hooky sometimes, like maybe 2 times out of the month. Just like Dad was like, let's just go surf all day. But like the contest used to be on, and we would be in school, and like we could hear scores and like the commentator and being like, oh my God, I just want to go watch like the Pipe Masters so bad right now. It's like Kelly probably got like a 10, and John was like in the heat. I was like, let me go watch the contest. It was kind of like torture a little bit.
So many young surfers around the world that have like preternatural talent like yourself and achieve so much at such a young age. Going to school or public school becomes a real challenge. And they end up doing sort of online school and remote learning. Is that something that you ended up doing eventually, or did you continue to go to school?
So after I went to Sunset Beach, I tried like 7th through 9th grade at Kahuku High and Intermediate. And as I went, first started at Kahuku, I started to travel like inter-island for like the NSSA contest. We would have inter-island contests, say like Kauai one weekend. The next weekend would be Maui or wherever. So I would have to leave like Thursday or Friday, like out of school, and they weren't really flexible with me like leaving and missing important assignments or tests. So around after 9th grade, my family and me decided just to do on homeschool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it almost becomes impossible like at that point. But it sounds like you were still pretty dedicated to doing the homeschooling anyway.
So if we had like all the NSSA contests one weekend and I'd have to like leave school earlier, like a Thursday or something, I'd have to take all my work with me and like do it over the weekend while I had the contest and stuff.
Right.
All my homework.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, this feels a little bit like a silly question because you're still so young, and your answer could be like, oh, it felt like it was going to be a thing when I qualified a few months ago. But was there a moment for you when you were younger, coming up and developing and competing, where you thought, okay, I'm going to be a professional surfer. I'm going to try to do this as a career. And was there a moment for you that you remember, or was it sort of just something that you always accepted was going to be something you tried to do?
I would kind of say both. So I've always loved surfing, and ever since I started surfing. But I think the moment for me when I realized like I actually wanted to pursue this and make a career out of this was when I was about like 12 years old, when I won my first national title at lowers. And I was like, you could like really do this. Like you're like, I feel like I was talented enough to like pursue what I wanted to do. And I just was dedicated and worked hard for it. And yeah.
I like the answer.
Yeah.
At the elite level, certainly at all levels of surfing, but definitely the championship tour, because surfing's so special and so unique, not everyone surfs exactly the same. Like some people have strengths, and then some of those strengths are other people's weaknesses, etc. I know this is a hard question for most people to answer, especially because it's about yourself. But if you could remove yourself and objectively watch the way you surf, what would you say are your biggest strengths as a surfer?
I'd say my biggest strength would probably be my power. I feel like I'm a very powerful surfer, especially coming out from Hawaii. I think everyone's powerful coming from here. Like in waves of consequence, I guess, like everyone's super powerful over here.
Well, I would say that I totally agree, just as an objective observer and watching you surf. But also, I'd say that at least the schedule at the elite level is kind of geared towards that kind of surfing, especially in the first half, right? Because we're at Pipeline to start, Sunset Beach, which is your home break. We go to Super Tubos in Portugal in the middle of winter. This is another heavy wave. You know, Bells Beach, Margaret River, all waves with a lot of power. So, you know, not to make it too easy for you, but I feel like you're qualifying at a moment that really suits your type of surfing.
I feel like, yeah, like I never really like actually like looked at it from what you just said, but that might suit those waves might suit my surfing. Yeah, I'm excited for that. I never really realized that actually. Well,
don't overthink it. We're just make sure. But I do think you prime for a good run here. Let's talk a little bit about sponsorship, because it's so important in the surfing world for surfers that are on and off tour. When was the first time you got sponsored? How old were you?
So I first got sponsored when I was 12 years old, after actually that lowers event. Reynolds Hayes came up to me and was like, hey, like, we want you to be a part of the Billabong team. Right. And I was just in shock, like, the greatest surfers, like, of all time, like Andy, Parco, Mark Occhilupo, like, they all rode for this iconic brand. And to just be a part of the brand that he was asking me to be a part of, like, I was in disbelief. I was so excited.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because you're absolutely right. Like, they are globally recognized as having an incredible program. But certainly in Hawaii, you know, as you mentioned, Andy, have you been able to tap into any of those resources? Obviously you have Reynos, who's invaluable as a coach, but you know, the other team riders, when they come through, do you spend time in the team house? Do you talk to Aki or Joel or anybody about anything? And have you been able to kind of leverage that relationship with your sponsor yet?
I actually, when I first got on the team, I was pretty shy, like, to introduce myself and to say who I was, and to even enter the house with like such like famous and like popular people. I just kind of like sit on the sidelines and watch them do their thing and try not to bother or like ask too much questions. But if I ever had the opportunity, I would ask like, hey, like, what do you think about this? You know, but I was never that type of person to just like go right there. Like I was kind of like in the shadows a little bit.
We should drag them over to Hawaii. They're all retired now. Their job should be to like pass along the wisdom. I think it'd be a really cool thing.
Yeah.
What about board building? I think I saw that originally, no, maybe not originally, but at one point you're writing for Bushman boards, and now you're writing for Sharp Eye. Is that correct?
Actually, my first ever surfboard was a Bushman surfboard. So I think I was like 7, 8 years old when I first got like a hard board, like and then I rode for Bushman for about 4 years, I guess. So 7 to 11. And then after that, one of my other coaches, Kahea Hart, he was like, hey, like you should try these Wade Takora boards. I think they would really work out for you. I think he would like really match what kind of surfing you would do. So I rode Wade Takora boards. I started trying Wade Takora boards, and they really helped my surfing out a lot. He makes incredible boards for, I guess like all the CT guys even get his boards when they come out here for pipe. So he makes really good boards. And then just over this last year, I started trying Sharp Eye surfboards, and I felt like those boards like changed the way that I surf now.
Right.
They're such like light and fast boards and such high performance boards as well. So he definitely helped me out.
So you're riding like a mix of shapers at the moment, or you just got one or the other?
So for the bigger stuff, I have all my Wade Takora step ups, and then I have my Sharp Eye surfboards as well. So I'm kind of like in between the two.
It makes a lot of sense. I know like there's obviously been throughout history like men's and women's surfers who are, they're like, I've got one shaper and I'm this kind of person. I'm going to ride in all conditions. But I think increasingly you're seeing, you know, people work with board builders who build boards, really, really good boards for a specific type of wave.
Right.
You know, and it's like, well, why do I have to sacrifice like their talent in maybe like Hawaiian waves for this other person's talent at like a lower zest kind of wave or whatever it is? And so it's great that you feel like you got that kind of relationship with both of them and you're able to do that.
So like you said, like Marcio Sharp Eye surfboards makes specific boards for like progressive surfing, and they also work in like the heavier stuff as well. But if it gets to a certain point where it's too heavy, I would take out the Wade Takora, because I can always rely on his surfboards because I know they always work in the heavier stuff.
Right.
But just this past year of learning like how Marcio shapes his boards and how he makes them, it's just incredible to just ride his surfboards as well. Like his surfboards work everywhere for me.
Right.
Yeah. But I think in the heavier stuff, Takora surfboards work well too. So it's a good balance.
It is a good balance.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's getting a little bit better at even if they're a Hawaii-based shaper or an Australia-based shaper, they're able to shape for like a global set of waves. I remember before, it was a time before times, right before you were born, when I worked at the Rip Curl Surf Center in San Clemente, we would get a ton of Australian imports, like boards, and it'd be like JS's and DH's and all these things. Great boards, and everyone wanted them because everyone's like, oh, Parco and Mick, and like, I want that board. And we'd look at them and I'm like, that board's not going to work at lowers. Like it just isn't. Like that board is designed for snapper rocks, like bowling out or Kira or something. And
that's so funny how you can look at a wave like that, like a board like that.
Of course, yeah. And I'm hardly like an expert, but like it's certainly that was the case. But I feel like now everyone's kind of gotten to the point where it's like I'm building an all-arounder and we're going to shape these boards for that like location, even if you're importing and stuff. But that's very cool. What kind of I love this question for CT surfers, but like when you go about getting boards for your year, competitive boards or just boards for free surfs or whatever, I've found that most CT surfers fall into two camps. Like one camp is, I'll ride anything. I'll ride epoxies and quads and thrusters and bat tails, and I just whatever works for the conditions. And then in my heat, I ride my Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's pretty rare to find out those people. But most of the CT surfers are like, I'm riding my Ferrari every day, regardless of like how big or small or crappy or good the waves are, because I just want to be as sharp as possible on it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the kind of surfer that likes to stick with one kind of model, like, high performance model, or do you experiment?
Yes, I'm the kind of surfer who sticks to that model. If I like something, I'll just stick to it. But I also try various types of other models too, and if I really like something, I'll just stick with it like the whole time. So like if it's my Ferrari, I will stick with that Ferrari like the whole time. But I like trying other things. But it gets to a certain point where like if something doesn't need to be changed, like why change it?
Yeah.
Like it's that saying, I guess.
That makes sense. And I think the other risk, right, if you're not that kind of person, is you hear this all the time where it's like, I am a Ferrari all the time kind of person, but someone made me a fish, and it's the same comment every time. Oh, it's impossible for me to get off it. It's like, well, if it's impossible for you to get off it, you better get off it quick, because you're gonna not be able to ride that in a minute. So
yeah, I don't think I would ever be that type of person who's like, oh, it's impossible to get off it.
Right.
I'm always open to try like other kinds of boards and other kinds of models, but ever since I was like 11, I've been sticking with like the same tail. Like I only ride round pins. I've tried like squashes or fishes or whatever, like swallowtails. I don't like those. I've stuck with the round pin like for 7 years. I don't want to get off of it.
You talked a little bit about your travels, certainly inter-island, and obviously doing the Challenger series. But I'd imagine, having parents that are originally from Brazil, that you've spent a little bit of time there.
I have. So since I was born, we would go. Me and my mom would take me. We would go every year to Brazil because all of my family is there.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's parents, my mom's parents are all from there. They're siblings. So we would go spend time with family every year during the summer or during the holidays. But I haven't actually been in about 5 years. Yeah, to Brazil. So
all right, that kind of derails my next question, because I was going to ask, I'm sure those trips were like really, really fun, but post 12, which is about 5 years ago when you started taking, this whole surfing career seriously, I was going to ask if some of those Brazilian trips became more training intensive, where you're like, I'm coming here to surf and surf a certain type of wave and train, but you haven't been there in a while.
So where my mom's and my dad's parents live, it's more city-like,
right? And
there's not much surf there. So every time I would go, I wouldn't really surf.
Right.
There wasn't much surf or much options to go to. So it's kind of just like regrouping and spending family time and spending quality time with family. It was never for like intense training or anything. Just always fun.
Outside of those, it brings me up another question, but outside of those downtime, family time, when you're not feeling pressured to surf, are you the kind of surfer that likes to surf all day, every day? Do you feel comfortable taking days off? Like, how do you go about, the surfing part of your job?
I guess it just depends how the waves are.
Okay.
So if the waves are good, or if it's like firing like all day, every day, I'd probably surf like 3 times a day.
Right.
But if it's like kind of an average day here, I wouldn't mind taking a resting day or like doing something else. I guess you come from a place where it's like good all the time, you get surfed out. And I think you need a break and like a balance to do something different.
Do you do other things training wise outside the water? Yoga, you mentioned kickboxing, but do you do anything specific in terms of your physical fitness?
So I train with Kahea, at least Kahea Heart, at least 3 times a week. We do more mobility, foundation stuff in the gym with him. Lots of strength and all that kinds of stuff in there. I do kickboxing sometimes. I started doing Bikram yoga, which I think helps my flexibility. I am not very flexible.
Me neither.
Which I need to work on. But I think all those things have helped me.
Yeah. And what about this has become something that I think a lot of athletes in and outside the surfing, but certainly in surfing, have been taking up lately, which is the mental aspect of it. Do you work with any sort of like mental coaching in terms of sports psych?
So I started actually working with Rafael. He's from Brazil as well. He does like physical training as well, but he's a mindset coach as well. So we just do like mental strategies for upcoming events and all that kinds of stuff, and it actually like really helped my mental in the side of that, I guess. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, that's fine. I mean, it clearly worked. You blitzed the Challenger Series, so you must have been stoked.
So I think competition, it's all mental. Like it's all in your mind. If you're physically fit, I think anyone can do it. And like if you have the talent, I think anyone can do it. But I think it all comes down to the mental side. Like if you're mentally like, I don't know, what's the word, like ready or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. I think you can do it, but it's all like mental, I guess.
One of the things that I think is pretty well established, but I've certainly noticed it throughout my 16 years at the company. The surfing industrial complex, the media and the industry love to hype young surfers qualifying, and we've seen it over time. And sometimes that hype, I think, has a negative effect because they get hyped so much that they kind of feel like I'm at the top of the mountain when they just qualified. And the speed and the talent and the strategy, the difference between, the Challenger Series level and the Championship Tour level is so vast that a lot of surfers with that hype kind of suffer because they feel like they're complete by the time they qualify.
Yeah.
But when you look at other surfers like a Mick Fanning or an Adriano, who both win world titles eventually, they're on the record as saying, I qualified and I had all these gaps in my surfing, and I have to specifically go out and work on it. Adriano specifically went out and worked on his rail game, and when the year he won the world title, he worked with Jamie O'Brien for 6 weeks just to be comfortable at pipe. Mick Fanning famously spent, 6 weeks in Tahiti before the event that he won there because he said, it's not my strong suit. If you had to outline one part of your surfing that you'd like to work on next, what do you think that would be?
I guess the progressive part. I see all these girls now progressing the sport with aerial. I guess I want to work on that because that's not really my strong suit. My strong suit is power surfing. And kind of more waves of consequence. So pipeline is it's outside of my comfort zone.
Right.
I probably wouldn't thrive out there as often as I would want to. And so for this next event, like pipeline, that's all I've been working on is just trying to get as comfortable as I can or as possible as I can to do well out there and to do well in waves of consequence. So I guess it would be more progressive, like aerials and stuff, and more waves of consequence.
On the aerial side, have you spent a lot of time, or any time, I guess, in any of the wave systems to work on that specifically? And what were your experiences with that, if you did?
I actually have. I've been to Waco a few times just to work on like the aerial side, and it's really difficult.
But did you notice that it helped, getting to repeat over and over and, thousands of times if you want, really, the same aerial section? Did you feel like you made a difference going there? And
I actually found that like working on that or like a trick or a maneuver over and over and over again, found it super helpful. Yeah. Just like doing it repeatedly, like over and over again. So like, or you can like watch the clips like, oh, this is what you did there. Why don't you go try like something different there? Or like try move your hand to this position so you might land in this other position. So like I think just working on it repeatedly like really helps.
Yeah.
Like really helps.
We're going to take one more break to get another word in from our sponsor, and we'll be back in a minute. One of your fellow members of the qualifying class on the Challenger Series, Caitlin Simmers, 15, so not that much younger than you, but everyone's pretty young, opted not to accept her spot on tour this year. She wanted to take more time to mature and be a kid. What were your thoughts when you heard about her decision?
I actually thought that was one of the most mature decisions that anyone's ever done probably in the sport. Just because I guess I'm so young too, I could have made the same decision or whatever. I thought that was such a mature and polite and humble decision of her to just take time off and still mature and like grow up. I guess she didn't want to grow up like during the tour and she just wants to keep having fun. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever second guess your decision to do it at 17, or you feel like this is my opportunity, I'm ready, we're going to roll with it?
As soon as I heard, there was no backing down.
Yeah.
If it's an opportunity in front of you, I always take it. Yeah.
First two events, as we've talked about, Billabong Pro Pipeline and then the Hurley Pro at Sunset Beach. Not too far apart geographically, but radically different waves. Do you have different boards for each spot or same boards that you just take out?
I guess like the guys on tour would say they would ride completely different other boards for like Pipeline and Sunset. But I kind of just, whatever's working, I just ride it at either spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
For our listeners who have never actually physically been to Sunset Beach, how would you describe that wave to them?
It's like a big, so we're trying to surf a big wave, like progressive wave, I guess. So it's something that Billy Kemper said. It was like, it's so true. That's what he said. It was like trying to surf a big wave, like like a small wave.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is.
It's your home spot. Do you feel like you will have a little bit of home field advantage out there?
Yeah, I hope I do. I've been surfing there since I was 7 years old.
Right.
I know how that wave works, where to sit, on what tides it's good at, like what winds it's good at. I've grown up there, so I hope I have a good advantage. Yeah,
I mean, surfers and competitors constantly reference like it's easy to get lost out there. It's such a big playing field, and so I'd imagine that your comfort level and experience out there cuts through a lot of that.
It is such a big playing field. For a heat, usually free surfing, it's like you have guys all around you, so like you're not really too lost. But in a heat out there, you could get pretty lost with how much space there is and how much it's not a lot going on. So I guess it's easy to get lost out there. You
talked about you excited to be on the championship tour. You're not expecting too much of yourself, but making the mid-year cut must be a goal.
I don't want to put pressure on myself, but you kind of have to. Just seeing that this year is very different with this new mid-year cutoff. Hopefully, like when I wanted to make the tour, I always thought, oh, we're going to start at Snapper and like have a full year of all these perfect waves. But as this new generation came, it's like the whole thing switched.
Right.
Probably because of like all this new COVID stuff and all that. That was why the change.
I mean, I think it's a couple things. Like I think the COVID non-year 2020 expedited a lot of the changes that we wanted to make.
Yeah.
And a lot of those changes are already working out really, really well. So I think we're pretty excited about it on our side, and mostly because it guarantees that that platform is still going to drive the world's best surfing, and that it's going to be there in kind of perpetuity, which is what, it's really important for everyone, certainly ourselves. But, it's interesting too. Like I wonder if you look at the schedule, right? We have Pipeline, Sunset Beach, Portugal, thank you. Super Tubos, Bells Beach, Margaret River, Mid-Year Cut, G-Land, Punta Roca now in El Salvador, Saquarema in Brazil, Jeffreys Bay, Tahiti. Which two spots are you most excited about surfing on either, in any of those 10?
J Bay.
Have you been there before?
Never.
Oh, all right.
Never. After that mid-year cutoff, I'm like really looking forward to
all of them. Yeah, literally all of them. I've qualified. I'm in. We can say forever.
Now that they added Punta Roca, it's like I'm really excited for that event.
Have you been down there too? Or?
No.
Okay. It's one of those things like when I was a kid, like following this or in high school or whatever, we didn't have internet or anything back in the dark ages. But like we get the magazines and as a kid, you're reading about like the Fiji event or the Gold Coast event or whatever. Crazy. And every photo, it looks perfect. Yeah. And all the article that you read, everything sounds perfect. And you're like, oh my God, like the Dream Tour is just pumping surf. Everyone just must get waves all the time. And I'm sure you've experienced this competing your whole life and obviously living in the ocean. But one of the things that was pretty jarring being on tour, and certainly everyone gets exposed to it with the webcast, is that it could be the right swell at the right stop and you just have a heat that is like, nope, no waves for you that heat or anybody, So it's one of those things where it's like, it's not all Dream Tour all the time.
Yeah. I've definitely watched a couple heats that are like just nothing. Just dead flat. But like the conditions are absolutely perfect. So it's like kind of like it's Mother Nature. You can't control Mother Nature. We're in such a unique sport. Like you never know what's gonna happen out there. It's all exciting new challenges that we're facing.
Being from Hawaii, who is Carissa Moore, reigning 5-time world champion, to you?
An inspiration. She's always been an inspiration to me. The way she just is always progressing the women's sport, whether it's charging waves of consequence or doing huge airs like the one she did in Australia. That's always been super inspiring to me. But what really inspires me is she carries that with such grace. She's always has like a smile on her face. So I guess she's like really kind of like such a great ambassador for the sport of surfing.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know her well? Would you say you guys are friends?
I hope we're friends.
I'll ask her next, but you can answer.
I don't know her that well, but she's just like the way that I see her, she's just so much fun to be around, and she's always so nice to us when I do see her. So she's so friendly.
We talked a little bit about this, but there's new surfers and new talent qualifying for the tour every year. But then, every so often there's like a big generational shift. And on the men's side, you could argue that big generational shift goes about every 5 years. Every 5 years there's like a new generation of people like en masse qualifying and pushing the sport. And it's actually probably even longer on the women's side. It's probably like 8 or 10 years. Yeah. Every 8 or 10 years, there's a new generation that's coming in and really pushing the sport. And you being 17, you're kind of at the bleeding edge of this new generation in women's surfing. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think somebody like Jess told me that the last like push or like of like a bunch of rookies qualifying on tour was like I think 2000, right? 2008 or something. So just being a part of this like new push of women surfing is like insane. It's amazing. 'Cause usually like every year for a girl qualifying, it's usually just one person.
Right.
With just always the other girls like requalifying. So just being a part of this new push is crazy to me that we're all like coming in a pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. And also, by the time this launches, like you may have already like made the front page with your round one performance and everything. So I'm really looking forward to it. Before we go, we did put a canvas out to the Instagram community for questions. We got a bunch back, but we narrowed it down to 3.
Okay.
First question is from Andy Cashford, who asks, how do you approach pressure situations, both mentally and physically?
I just try not to think about pressure situations way too much. I don't want to get anything in my head because I would say I am an overthinker and I overthink a bunch of situations. If it's either how the waves are, what board, if I'm confused on boards, I tend to like try and not overthink pressured situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Second question is from @OAlley47, who asks, is there a wave on tour you haven't surfed, which we talked about a little bit? Mm-hmm. If so, how are you approaching it? So maybe what is the first wave on tour that you haven't surfed, and how are you going to approach getting ready for it?
I think I haven't surfed most of the waves on tour. So I think the first wave that I haven't surfed that'll be on the schedule is probably Portugal. Okay. Or like Peniche, Super Turbos.
Yeah, Super Turbos, yeah.
So the way that I want to approach it is just having a fun free surf. That's probably how I want to approach all the waves that I haven't surfed. Like, for instance, J-Bay. I just want to have a fun free surf with one other girl out. Yeah.
Last question is from the real Mivpiven. McPiven? I'm not sure. Sorry. Their question is, who are you looking forward to surfing against the most and the least this season?
I would say like all the girls on tour, but specifically, I'm looking forward to surfing against all the big dogs like Steph, Tyler, Carissa, Lakey, like all the girls that have been there for like 10 plus years. I'm excited to be surfing against them.
Love it.
Yeah.
Final segment. It's now time for the lightning round presented by Michelob Ultra Pure Gold. 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can.
Okay. If
you could only have one board set up for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad bonzer, or finless, what would you choose?
I've only ridden twin fin and thruster, so I would say I'll do twin fin.
All right.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Burrito or pizza?
Burrito.
Last book you read?
The How Champions Think.
Best surf film ever?
Leave a Message.
One wave you never have to go back to?
Huntington Beach.
If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life?
Barra de la Cruz.
Best person to share a lineup with?
My friends.
Worst person to share a lineup with?
Crazy uncles.
Last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by...
I will next achieve a state of happiness by having fun.
I think that might be the fastest lightning round we've ever done.
Really?
You didn't get
slow.
No, you're good. Most people get hung up on the book question. There's a big like, oh no, you're quick.
Yeah. Okay.
Good work.
I try to be quick.
Luana Silva, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Good luck this season. Congratulations. It's incredible. And I can't wait to watch you surf.
Thank you so much. I was actually really excited. Thank you for having me here.
Of course.
Yeah.